Hello, today we're going to be looking at writing slope-intercept form equations like we've been doing, except for we're going to be starting with a little bit different information this time. Instead of being given m and b, instead we're going to be given 2 points. So the process we're going to do here is we're going to use the slope formula, which is this formula right here, to find our slope. y2 and y1 are just the coordinates of the second y point, or y coordinates of the second point and the first point. Same idea with the x's. X2 is the x coordinate of the second point, x1 is the x coordinate of the first point. We'll use this formula to find our slope, or m. Once we have that, we'll use y equal mx plus b with the m we just found. One of the points you usually just use the first one you see, use its x value and y value, and we're going to work backwards to find b. Once you have m and b, you can write a slope-intercept form equation with your m and b filled in like we've done before. Let's try a few. So I like to start by labeling what x1 and y1 are. It just helps me out. So if I'm going through 2, 4, and 0, 2, x1 is the first x coordinate I see, so x coordinate of the first point, which means that 4 is y1, it's the y coordinate of the first point I see. So then the second point is x2 is 0, y2 is negative 2. From here, we're going to plug these things into our slope equation. I like to write the equation out every time. You do not have to do this, but I think it's helpful. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I also like to kind of start by pre-filling in. I know there's going to be a minus sign up top and a minus sign on bottom. Now let's put things where they go. Y values go on top, and it's y2 minus y1. It's going to look like negative 2 minus 4. That minus is just part of the formula. Same idea, but with the x's. x2 is 0, minus x1 is 2. Now let's simplify that. Negative 2 minus 4 is negative 6. 0 minus negative 2 is negative 2. Negative 6 divided by negative 2 is positive 3. So I get m equals 3. Now I need to find b. So to find b, I'm going to use y equals mx plus b, but I'm going to fill in everything else but b. M is that slope we just found, so I'm going to put 3 for m. And for x and y, you can pick whatever point you want to use. I usually just go with the first one. So we use 2, 4. I'm going to use x is 2 and y is 4. So just pick one of the points in its x coordinate and y coordinate. Y is 4, so it goes in the y spot. X is 2, so it goes in the x spot, plus b. Now let's solve this out. This stays a 4. 3 times 2 is 6 plus b. And now let's get b by itself. So I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. I end up with my b value being negative 2. We know from the past that to write a slope-intercept form equation, all we need is m and b. I now have my b value. I used my slope formula to find my m value. So to write my final answer equation, it's going to look like y equals my slope number, or my m, which was 3, x, and then my b number was negative 2. So you could write plus negative 2, or you can just write minus 2. Once you have all those ingredients filled in, your equation is done. Let's try another one. I'm just going to start by labeling x1, x2, y1, y2, and writing out my formula. I'm also going to kind of pre-fill in the next step. I know I'm going to be subtracting up top and in the bottom. Up top is y2 minus y1, so it's going to be negative 5 minus 5. Down in the denominator is x2 minus x1, so 1 minus 3. Negative 5 minus 5 is negative 10. 1 minus 3 is negative 2. Negative 10 divided by negative 2 is positive 5. So our slope, or our m, is 5. Now let's find b. We know our m, that m we just found is 5, so that's going to go in the m spot. For x and y, just pick your favorite point. I usually just pick the first one. So x is going to be 3 and y is going to be 5. Y is 5, x is 3. Put those where they go. B stays the same because that's what we're trying to find. Simplify what you can. 5 times 3 is 15. And then solving that equation to get b by itself, I subtract 15 from both sides, and I get negative 10 for my b. I now have m and I have b, so I have all the ingredients I need to write my final answer equation. Y equals our m number, which was 5, x, and then our b number, which was negative 10 or minus 10. The next couple problems look different, but they're really the same thing. Instead of giving you 2 points, they've actually given you 3 points now. They're just in a table. Our goal is still to write a slope-intercept form equation like we just did. It's just the information is presented to us differently. So they have given us more points than 8. They gave us 3 points. We really only need 2. So just pick your 2 favorites. I am going to pick the first point and the second. So the first row is the first point, the second row is the second point. That means x1 is 3, x2 is 1, which means y1 is 12, and y2 is 4. We're going to still start by finding m using our slope formula. So I'm probably getting pretty good at this by now. y2 minus y1 is going to look like 4 minus 12. x2 minus x1 is going to look like 1 minus 3. Simplify that out. 4 minus 12 is negative 8. 1 minus 3 is negative 2. Negative 8 divided by negative 2 is positive 4. So m just equals 4. Now let's find b. We're going to use that m we just found, which is 4. We need to pick an x and y. Let's just go with the first point we see here, which is 312, which means x is 3 and y is 12. Since y is 12, that goes in the y spot. X is 3, so that goes in the x spot. Simplify what you can. 4 times 3 is 12. Solving this equation, I need to subtract 12 from both sides to get b by itself. And I get that b equals 0, which is perfectly fine. I now have an m, I now have a b, so I can write an equation. So following what we've been doing, y equals our m number, which was 4, x plus our b number, which is 0. That right there, y equals 4x plus 0, is one perfectly acceptable way to write this. However, there's another way that if you're looking at something multiple choice, they're probably going to write it. Writing that plus 0 is kind of redundant. You don't have to include plus 0 because it doesn't change the value. So another way you could write this would just be y equals 4x without that plus 0. The only time you can skip writing the b is when it says 0. Either of those are perfectly acceptable final answers I would be super happy with. That's also the most crooked line I've drawn in my life. Okay, let's try another table question. So same idea. Pick any 2 points. I usually just go with the first 2. So if I'm using the first 2, x1 is 1, x2 is 0, y coordinates, y1 is negative 2, y2 is 1. Start off with our lovely slope formula. I like to preset it up. Up top, y2 minus y1 is going to look like 1 minus negative 2. Don't let that double negative scare you. Down in the denominator, x2 minus x1 is 0 minus 1. 1 minus negative 2 is positive 3. 0 minus 1 is negative 1. Negative 3 divided by negative 1 is negative 3. So m is negative, that's okay. It's a negative 3. Now we need to find b. Good news, we just found m is negative 3, so I'm going to put that where m goes. For x and y, pick any 2 points. Let's just pick the first point. So my x value of the first point is 1. The y value of the first point is negative 2. So negative 2 goes in for y. 1 goes in for x plus b. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. Now we can solve. Add 3 to both sides. I get b equals positive 1. I now have everything I need to write my equation. Y equals m, we found earlier, was negative 3. X always is part of the equation. And then 1 is B, so plus 1. There's one more problem we look at that's a little bit trickier, which is this one right here. They tell us point P is located at -1, 5, and point Q is at 3, -3. Which point lies on line PQ? You could potentially figure this out by graphing, but you can also figure it out by finding the equation of that line, which is how I'm going to show you how to do this. So we have 2 points. That means we can use our slope formula to find our slope and then find our B like we did before. First point, X is -1. Second point, X is 2. And then same idea with the Y's. We've done this lots of times now. Putting things where they go in the formula, y2 minus y1 is going to look like -3 minus 5. x2 minus x1 is going to look like 3 minus -1. -3 minus 5 is -8. 3 plus basically negative, or 3 minus -1, which is like 3 plus 1 is 4. -8 divided by 4 is -2. So I get m equals -2. Now we can write our equation. Pick your favorite point to be x and y. Let's just use this. So x is 1, -1, y is 5. So 5 equals my m, which I already found, which is -2. X is -1 plus b. Simplify what we can. -2 times -1 is +2. Solve the equation to get b by itself. I get 3 for my b, which means my equation is y equals my slope. Eraser is not cooperating, so we're just going to scratch this out. Y equals m is -2, x plus b, which is 3. So plus 3. They didn't ask us for the equation. They asked us which point lies on this line. The way we can figure out which point lies on this line is we can plug each x and y in for x and y and see if we get an equation that works. So let's try this with this first option, 5, -13. So I'm going to plug in -13 for y, 5 for x. If I simplify that, I can't simplify anything this side. -2 times 5 is -10 plus 3. And if I simplify the right-hand side one more time, -10 plus 3 is -7. So I get 13 equals -7. That is not true. I get an equation that doesn't make any sense. So that means that first point doesn't fall on the line. We're going to repeat this process for the other points. So now let's try 2, 1. That means y is 1, x is 2. -2 times 2 is -4. I'm sorry, this should be a 3 here. -4 plus 3 is -1. 1 equals -1 is not true, so it's not this point. Now let's try 1, 1. -2 times 1 plus 3. -2 times 1 is -2 plus 3. -2 plus 3 equals 1. I get the same thing on both sides, which means 1, 1 actually fits on our line. That is it for today. I hope you have a fantastic day.